All right, here we go with another model build. This one is the Dwarven Ironhelm Fortress. A beautiful Dwarven piece of scenery, and it comes in a few parts. Obviously, a little bit of assembly required with a lot of these printable scenery models, especially if it's got a larger base. So you'll notice the first thing, this is the ground floor, or level one. Comes in two parts here. So you can see, I mean, that obviously fits together quite nice. It's all very logical. But you'll notice these little guide holes. They're called guide or guiding slots or something like that. What you basically need to do is pop a little bit of filament into these little slots. You don't need to glue them in. Just pop a tiny little piece of filament in those little slots on one of the halves. Pop your glue on, and then you kind of line them up and click them together with the filament, and that guides it into place. It puts into a perfect scene. So that's how that works. I'm not going to do that right now because this particular one, I want to actually have it as I want to paint the inside. I'm going to put it together later, but the reason it comes in two parts is for those freaky people like me who like to paint the internals with a lot of detail. So I can easily get my brush into those crevices when it's in pieces like this, in smaller pieces, smaller parts. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to paint this section here and do it that way and glue it together later. But just for demonstration purposes, you'll notice that goes together like that. And you have a lot of other smaller pieces like these, the steps and some doors. Doors are pretty simple. I'll cover that in other videos. It's basically just you get the door, pop it into place, a little bit of filament through the middle, and it sits on the hinge like that inside the door frame. So I'm not going to go through that again in this video. There are other videos on our channel here that will demonstrate how the doors work. Four sets of doors. Anyway, let's have a look at these stairs. So again, with the guiding holes here, that basically sits on the side like that. And it'd be no problem just to sort of glue that into place right now. I can't see any reason why I would want to keep that separate. Apart from the fact that I could probably a little bit easily more paint that separately. And also once I've glued it into place, I actually would like to be able to paint that. So it may, I actually don't think it would hinder very much. So I might just go ahead and put that into place now. First step is to just line it up on a dry run, see how it's going to fit. And this other piece goes around the corner like that and sits at the top. Hope you can see that quite clearly. And you'll notice there's a little bit of a square nodule there, if you like, and that basically glues on top of that. That lines up nicely with that particular little position. But having said that, all the pieces that you need to glue together all have their guiding slots. So you pop a little bit of filament inside there, and then you glue it together. Now, I recommend gluing this part together first, and then we'll pop it. You can put it together into the frame later. So in this fixed section of the video, I'm just putting it together. I thought I'd speed up time a little bit. It's quite boring. Done this a few times. This is where we just clean up the holes a little bit with a small drill. I just use a manual drill bit, about 1.75 millimeters, which is the same as the filament size, and just a little bit of super glue in the little holes. Very little. You don't need much at all. In fact, I usually do it without, and just trimming off the edges there. Make it quite small. Maybe you can just determine how deep it is when you're putting the drill bit in. You can see how deep the holes are. So you don't need very much, and just trim it off, and then just slot it into the slots with a bit of glue. Hold it in place for a few seconds, and done. I'm actually using an activator spray along with the super glue. I find it really really efficient. You can actually get it to dry in literally seconds, and once you hold it together. And that's just the steps. Now, I know I said you glue the steps to the other steps before putting it together, but in this case, I changed my mind and I actually glued the second part of the steps to the second part of the frame, just to keep it separate, and it fit quite snugly on there as well. So when we put it together, it actually seams up nicely, and everything fits. So we're now ready to put the whole thing together. So here's our base level, and it just slots together like that. As we explained, we're going to put some glue these together at some point with some filament in the guiding slots, and that just fits together like that. But I am going to paint it first, and I recommend you want to do that as well, unless you just don't want to have any detail, or you're not going to be using the inside of the building at all, in which case just glue it together and be done with it. So next step, it's very simple. All the levels are pretty modular. That sits on the top, Next one on the top like that. And then we've got our little roofs. And finally, that roof. And there it is, the Dwarven Ironhelm Fortress. And just to give you a bit of scale, there's a Dwarven cleric of some kind just sitting in the top balcony there. A little guy there, down there, another dwarf. So scale to 28 millimeters, can also be available a little bit bigger if you wanted to. A 32 millimeter scale, can do both. And also, you might want to also check out the Demonhelm Fortress, which is basically the same building, except it's got sort of all demon scenery throughout it. It's like in an alternate reality, perhaps the hell version of the Dwarven realms. And as you can see, this is all exactly the same. This is our rooftop. These are the different levels, and it's just got these amazing sort of reeds and all sorts of weird, evil stuff growing throughout the different levels. Very organic, very detailed to paint. So once again, you'll want to keep these ones separately. There's even like little stringy sort of veins and all sorts of weird things. If you look on the website, you'll see some images of a professionally painted one version of this. Quite amazing. So this will take a little while to paint, but it's the same building effectively. So yeah, just we can go ahead and paint that when we feel like it, and it goes together in exactly the same way. That. Yep. And then top. And there we have it. Two beautiful fortresses. Check them out now.